What up, y'all? Welcome back to Empowering Real Talk. It is your girl, Coach Kay, and I am back with another dope session, baby. Listen, before I get started, please do me the honors. If you are listening on an audio platform, then make sure you favorite Empowering Real Talk on your favorite streaming podcast platform. But if you are watching my beautiful face on YouTube, then you see that I'm not here by myself, but I also want you to make sure that you hit that subscribe button to the Upgraded MindsetZ Media channel as well. All right. So I'm going to allow my guest the honors of introducing herself. Hello, hello, hello.
Hi, thank you for having me. Hello, everyone. My name is Regina Sloan. I'm a life coach. I think we met in one of the Facebook podcast groups and just really
Absolutely.
happy to be here and have this conversation.
I am too. I am too. Like I said, y'all know I am all about bringing others to the platform to talk about the conversations that are necessary. And this episode is going to be no different. All right. So before we get and dive into what we're going to talk about, I'm going to allow Regina to kind of give us a little bit about her backstory, where you come from, baby, and what got you where you are today.
Oh, wait. Okay. So,
Hey,
right.
no holds barred, baby. Ain't no judgment here.
Yeah, I love that. So, yeah, I was born and raised in Indy. I still live here, Indianapolis, Indiana. I am a child of a mom she had four children, and I was the oldest. Since then, when you talk about where I've come from and how I got where I am today, I've always been interested in personal development, regardless. I became a nurse first in my life. My grandmother, she kind of conditioned me from a child, like, oh, you're so helpful. You're going to be a nurse. You're going to be a nurse. So that's generally really the only reason why I became a nurse. And I do love that career. However, what I learned while being a nurse is that people really have our mindset is more important than our physical and everything else that comes from that.
Yes.
And all right, thousands of people that I've taken care of, people I've worked with. I spent a lot of time in the ICUs and different things. So we're dealing with a lot of end of life things, and you get to see a different side of people when they're really sick and at their lowest points. And what I realized was that what we believe about ourselves, what we believe about what's possible, how we're thinking, all of that really does contribute to what we create. And so I got into coaching personally. I was dealing with a lot of things. I've had a lot of traumas. I've lost a couple of brothers and just different things that have happened. I had my first child. I was pregnant at 15. So a lot of things have happened in my life. And in my early 20s, I just felt like I really needed some help. And so got into a lot of different things. And the one that stuck, I've done therapy for years. I believe that there's a time and place for that, but got my own coach, and my coach helped me through a lot of things and helping me change the way that I thought about myself and what I thought about, the people around me, what I thought about the possibility of what I can create. And it really just expanded my mind. And so I've experienced a transformation, and it really was no going back from there, and decided to start helping people myself. And so that's what I do. I spend my time really helping women to believe in themselves first, because in order, a lot of women come to me for a lot of different things, some results they want to create, some things they've been working on, and they've just been unable to. But what has to happen first is they must believe in themselves. And so
Come on.
um, that's the foundation of what I do. And then you sprinkle in all kinds of things. I know we'll be talking about that today, but the way we think about ourselves as women, what we think we should be doing versus what we want to be doing. I deal with a lot of people pleasing, perfectionism, all those things. And that's what's required in order to, take new and different choices. And so you have different results. Little snapshot.
Oh my God, girl, let me tell you, your
Yeah.
story sounds so similar to mine. And like, this is what made me get into it as well, right? Because our stories are so similar, from the people pleasing to the teen pregnancy, to the therapy, but not getting everything you needed out of those therapeutic sessions, right? And also being someone that was always helpful to people, because I actually walked that journey as well. But the problem with me is I was always angry doing it, right? I was
Mhm.
always mad, but that was me being mad at where I was in life, mad at the lacking that I was doing in life, but didn't know that that's what it was at the time. But the only emotion I identified with was anger. So
Mhm.
yeah, I was super supportive for everybody, but I'm cussing them out because I'm supporting them. I'm mad because I'm supporting them, and it was like that people pleasing came in, but I fussed and I cussed a lot about that.
Yeah.
But like really 2020 was that breakthrough year for me, that it was like, it's time for me to prioritize me. Like,
Mhm.
because I think what happens, the disconnect and just from, me dealing and talking with women clients, is we feel like that when we say we're putting ourselves first, that means that we don't want to help nobody else. And that's not the case. Me stepping into my most empowering self is going to benefit you, but you
Absolutely.
got to allow me to take that journey, and you got to want to take that journey, because I ain't helping nobody that ain't trying to help themselves, and I know
Mhm.
you come across that a lot too. We hear the excuses is crazy.
Yeah, I think I 100% because I think that it's really hard to, man, we could talk about this all day long around how,
Mhm.
whatever you're raised in becomes your belief system. It doesn't
Yes.
matter if it's right, wrong, healthy, unhealthy. That becomes really what you believe about the world. And then there comes a part where we then conform in many different ways from childhood up. And it works because it helps us survive, to be safe,
Right.
those kinds of things. But then there's a part where it works until it doesn't. And so, however, like, oh man, I'm doing this, and you see yourself doing the things, and it's not helpful, it's not healthy for you, it's not helping you create what you want. It's that change can be really hard because of that belief system we have around things being a certain way, and having to really address that.
Yeah. And I call that outdated thinking, because that's really where, I focus on a lot. And that's where everything starts with the mindset. The mind is where everything begins. People hear me say that all day. It don't a day go by where the word mindset is not in my vocabulary. It's not in a sentence that I'm saying something, because there are so many outdated thinking methods and patterns and processes and cycles that we have dealt with over the years. And I love the word you said, surviving, because
Mhm.
those are things that we have done to survive. But
Yeah.
when you are ready to get out of survival mode, you're going to have to leave those processes that helped you survive in the back. You're gonna have to leave them behind. And it's
Yeah.
time to create new methods, and stuff like that. When it comes to that, and like you said, we deal with women all day, every day. What do you think like the biggest struggle is when someone's coming to you and saying, hey, I'm struggling, I don't know how to do this? Like, what is probably one of the biggest things that you deal with as a coach?
Yeah. I think it is people's, I would have to say, one, I think someone coming to want to change takes a lot. First of
Mhm.
all, when people reach out to us,
It
right, and we're
does.
ready to move forward, it takes a hell of a lot to say, hey, I need help. And I'm willing to invest my time, energy, and money into getting that help.
Right.
And so that right there is the hardest part to get started. And then when I think on the consults that I have, and then when we get into the work, it really is around the negative emotions that come up that you must be able to welcome in, feel, understand, allow.
Mm.
And we spend, most people, women and men in general, we are taught from childhood that negative emotions are a bad thing, that we need to get rid of those. And so I think being able to feel those while you're changing, because it's not,
Yes.
"Oh, I wanna change this thing," and you go change and it feels good. Being
Right.
able to feel that, allow that to happen and still change, and that's why I think it's so important, if at all possible, for people to have support. So, it's so many things that come to my mind, but I truly believe that's the hardest part, because in order to change, you have to do something different, and
Ooh.
we have that primitive part of our brain that wants us to stay the same, so you have to be able to overcome that in order to do the change and apply it.
Oh man, I love what you just said, because it's true. Like, you have to be ready to put work in. I think we have this false sense of thinking that we can just flip a switch and everything is going to, and it kind of go, and I kind of want to reference like New Year resolutions, right?
Mhm.
Because all year long you've been in this default state of mind, but you feel like miraculously on January 1st you about to be able to make these grand changes, right? And that's really because that's what we have been programmed to believe. That's what has been pushed to us. The narrative has been pushed. So it's like, you're not going to make those changes on January 1st,
Mhm.
and I had to come into that, because now I don't even make New Year resolutions. I will make a resolution on July 15th. You feel me? I'll
Mhm.
make a resolution on October 13th, because whenever I decide that there is something new that needs to happen for me, I'm not going to say, oh, I'm waiting, because you clearly know those that are saying, hey, I'm going to go to the gym starting January 1st. It's October 15th. Why you ain't going to the gym on October 16th? So you're going to wait another 2.5 months, because that's how we were programmed, and that's a conditioning thing. So, like, getting out of those outdated thinking processes It takes a lot of work. But one thing that I also tell too is that there has to be something to replace the habit,
Mm,
right? The old habit. We want to say we're going to stop doing something, but if there's nothing in that place, we already know we reverting right back because it's a default for one, but for two, there's nothing to replace that.
yeah, I
You know
think
what I'm saying? Go ahead.
that really goes with the story that we believe about ourselves is what I think
Yes.
of while you're talking about that. Like if I'm somebody that every first, and this is, you don't know this is happening, but
Hmm.
subconsciously, right? Like every first of the year, I got my stuff together, I'm getting going, I got all these new things, and then I go with it for 2 weeks and I fall off. Like that's who I believe I am, and that's
Yeah.
how it changes. So it really is like, well, who was I? And I always do a lot of like future evolved self. Like you're high, everyone has that future
Right.
evolved selves. Like how does she operate? How would she show up? And I love what you mean about saying, okay, it's October 15th. I'm gonna go start working out in January. Why not tomorrow? Then that really is like it's fun to plan. It's fun to have
Mhm.
these grander ideas of that feels so good. And it doesn't exert any energy. It doesn't exert
Right.
us having to do new things. Because going to the gym tomorrow, that's a real deal thing. And there's that negative emotion when it's time to get up and go, like, oh, I don't feel like it. All kinds of negativity happens and being able to
Yeah.
push past that. So I 100% agree.
Absolutely. And especially us as women, right? And I kind of want to touch on this for a little bit because we will put our needs and our wants, because I'm going to say wants and needs too, because it's okay to want things, yes, we need things, but it's okay to want. As women, we will put our wants and needs on the back burner for the sake of saying, oh, I got to make sure that this is straight. As mothers, we're both mothers, we are both daughters, we sisters, whatever else. But like, I spent years doing that. I
Mm,
spent years being the nurturer, but putting my own emotions on the back burner, emotions, feelings, what I wanted to do, like everything on the back burner. Do you hear that a lot with women saying, oh, I want to make changes, but I got kids, or I want to make changes, but I'm taking care of this person. I'm taking care of my mom, my dad. Like,
yeah,
do you hear that a lot?
absolutely. I definitely do. And I think that when you think about that, what I like to think of is what we think is getting in the way is the reason we need to be doing it.
Mhm.
Around, oh, I don't have the time. That's why you need to make the time. I don't have the
That
money.
part.
That's why you need to make the time and invest your money.
Yeah.
Whatever is getting in the way for us. And it really starts with it's again like that. It's hard because you're making a decision. You want to change, but then it takes that brain that's causing the ruckus to then decide to change to do the thing. So
Yeah.
you have to be there's a certain level of discomfort that happens when we make new and different decisions.
Mhm.
We like to think, I'm gonna feel great about this. I'm gonna feel great about making this choice. But really, it's normalizing that anytime you're doing something different, you're going to feel a certain kind of way. And if you're
Yeah.
a person that's used to putting your needs, your wants, I love how you brought up both because that is so true. Because we have
Yeah.
a thought of like, oh, we only can do a week what we need to do. What do I need to do to get by? And that makes sense because most of
Mhm.
us saw our moms doing that.
Yeah.
Most of us, saw our moms there was no needs in wants. There was, I need to work, I need to put food on the table. And let's not even get started with what we really need is to know how to manage and feel our emotions. And we
Come
didn't
on.
see that happening. And so
Yeah.
how do we do that? So it's like in the moment when you talk about coming like, oh, I got this going, I got that going on. It makes total sense because that's why you are where you are. There's like no judgment there. It just helps you to have the awareness like, oh, okay, I
Yeah.
keep saying, but I got this, but I got that. That's why I continue this cycle. So being able to have a yes and, like, yes, I do have kids, I do have responsibilities, and my life and their life is better for me taking care of myself. Right.
Yeah.
And for me, I think that starts with the belief we have around getting away from our kids, having a long time, managing our emotions, learning this, having wants and exerting those to the people around you, setting boundaries, like the way you think about that. If you think that that's wrong, it's selfish, of course, you're never going to do it. So it's that small practice every day. I like to ask questions to myself, and I have my clients do this as well. Like, okay, if you thought that it was okay to do that, how would you operate? How would things be different now? Like really just thinking about, oh, if I
Mhm.
was a person that thought it very important that I have
Mhm.
boundaries, then what would I be doing? What would I say here? And it helps you to kind of like get into that imagination, that creativity, because our brains know the answer to everything we ask it, to be open to exploring that.
Girl, you said a word, baby. You said a word. It's like we have to be able to create the new reality that we want,
Mhm.
um, especially as mothers, because the first thing we say is we feel like a failure if our child feels like that they're not being accommodated to. But
Mhm.
we all know we'll spoil our kids to death. You know what I'm saying? So I love what you touched on as far as feeling the negative side of things too, because I am big on that. I definitely used to feel that way before I started my coaching journey and whatever else. But like the process of not embracing the negative side, right? But now I tell them, yes, we're going to embrace it. We're just not going to stay there.
Mhm.
We're going to embrace it. We're going to feel it, whatever you got to do to get it off at that moment or
Right.
whatever else. And we're also going to put practices in place for you to be able to do that continuously, because
Mhm.
we are supposed to feel those emotions, and as women in our nurturing state, when our kids are upset, it's we're gonna be upset, but
Mhm.
it is okay to be upset. And it is
Mhm.
okay for you to say, hey, I gotta take a step back for a second. I seen a video on TikTok a little while ago, and it was a girl. She was sitting outside, and her son, I think it was her son, he was probably like 2 or 3, and he was inside of the glass just crying his eyes out. You couldn't hear him, but you could
Mhm.
see it in his face. And her caption was like, when you just need that moment and you just got to say, oh, well, it was something to that degree. But
Mhm.
basically, the gist of it was he was going to cry anyway. So she stepped outside and allowed him to cry, but she seen him. She had her eyes on him. But baby,
Mhm.
I'm gonna let you cry. And I think that was very significant in this message, because as women, we can't control everything, ladies. I know we want to. I know we want to be able to have control over 100% of the things that's around us, that's going on with us, but sometimes we can't. And I really want us to understand that it is truly okay for you
Mhm.
not to have control in that moment. It's okay to not have that control. Ooh,
I'm
girl.
thinking so much that you said from that. Like the first thing when you talked about like our children and we wanted to be at their beck and call basically. And like,
Mm,
they thinking that. I like to also think of, especially if you're raising, I think boys and girls alike, but especially as women raising girls, especially, and even boys, for them to see that for their,
mhm.
if they're going to date women and marry women and all that, like for them to see how that the importance of her having her space. I always think of like our children, so much is caught, not taught. Like they're going to pick up what you're doing. And so I find it very empowering for my kids to see me do sis. I once a week, I leave this house. I leave my husband here with them and I go and do my thing.
I
And
love
I let him know ahead of time and I make sure. And of course, yeah, my 6-year-old might come running, Mommy, I want to go. I want to go. Yeah, that's totally fine. I understand. I'm like, well,
that.
this is my time for me because it's important for me to take care of me. And we sometimes have to have those conversations. But what
Yes.
I'm doing is showing her, you need your alone time. What you want is very important. Me, y'all want to go out to eat? Yeah, me. Oh, I don't know, whatever you want. That's cool sometimes, but also, oh, I want this tonight. I
Mhm.
want to live. Like them seeing us put ourselves first, them seeing us use our words around. Like if I have an issue with my husband, like of course there's a different dynamic, right? And certain things happen with just me and him, but if there's like, oh, if for example, sometimes we're fast and we moving about and he may just leave, like, oh babe, no, I don't like when you leave without giving me a hug and kiss. Like look me in my eye. Hey, have a great day. And it's not any turmoil or anything, but my daughter is seeing me exert like, oh, that's her preference. It's important to talk about that. And when you talk about the video with the little boy, I find that I love how that was shared because it is a reality of most people too. But I think also a piece that came up for me in that is also the importance of women taking care of their emotions and regulating so they can co-regulate. Because if
Yes.
you are, and I listen, I have 4 kids. I know exactly, and my youngest will be 4 tomorrow. So
Oh,
those tantrums, like it can be so
yeah.
hard when we don't know how to manage what's happening within us when they're going crazy and they're doing all kinds of things. When we learn to regulate ourselves, we can co-regulate with that child so that they learn to regulate themselves. It's so important.
Hey, I love that right there. That quote right there say it all, sis. We need
Yeah.
to regulate so we can co-regulate. Like that
Mhm.
right there is a whole message right
Mhm.
there, y'all. If y'all ain't take nothing else, you better take from that, okay? Because it's just so important for us to like really become who we are supposed to be. We all have a path, we all have a journey, and it's going to be hell sometimes to get there, right? But it's
Mhm.
still a journey that is so necessary to take. It's never too late for us. Sometimes we feel like as we get older, mothers, like you said, with 4 children, some would say, oh, it's too late for me. I need to focus on my kids. No, you being okay from a mentally healthy standpoint is you focusing on your kids too.
Mhm.
And I really talk about that a lot more. I teach that, but I'm also in platforms to be able to advocate for that, because our mental well-being is where everything starts. And when people say mental well-being, the first thing they think you're talking about is mental illness. And although it is a part of that, your well-being is your livelihood every day. You know
Yeah,
what I'm saying?
because that is so important because when you think about it, when you talk about mindset, I would have to agree because what you're thinking, that's our mindset is like, what are we, when we are just monitoring ourselves? So we have over 60,000 thoughts that come in our mind all
All
the
day,
time,
baby.
right? And so whatever you're thinking, though, whatever you put belief to, whatever you're believing, creates an emotion in your body. So if you're thinking negatively 90% of the time, you're going to have 90% negative emotions. And our emotions drive our actions. So however you feel, if you think about it, however you feel in the moment is how you're showing up. So when you talked about being angry and we look at what you do from that, yeah, you may have been helping people, but how are you showing up in that instance of that being angry? You're talking about cursing out people and all those kinds of things. Like it makes sense. But that was
Mhm.
the energy that was there, frustration, resentment, all kinds of things that might be coming up. So when moms are thinking, oh, it's too late for me, I need to worry about my kids, how much of that really is true? Because they're seeing, if you're not taking care of your mental health, so if you are 90% negative and you're spinning in all that, the resentment, the irritation, the frustration, sometimes we don't even know what's wrong with us if we've not done this work. There's no way you're going to create a nurturing, happy home for your kids. It has to start with you. It's not a fake it till you make it when it comes to emotions and thinking. They're going to drive everything you do.
Man, ain't no more faking it till we make it, y'all. Like, I know that we have this strong woman stigma, and I personally don't call myself strong, because when you say strong, people automatically default and say, oh, she don't need no help because she's strong. No, I do not identify as that. I teach my clients to no longer identify as that. Strength and strong are two different definitions. Do I have strength? I absolutely have the strength to continue going to become the best version of myself. Am I strong? No, I'm not. Have I been strong? Yeah, when I was in survival mode, yes. But because I have shedded that survival mode mentality, I also shedded that word along in the process. So it just really comes back to like realigning who you are, and even you touched on it earlier, we with us growing up, to say, hey, this is how I was raised, this is how I was brought up in this type of household, so therefore I have to keep living like that. And no, you don't.
Mhm.
Whether it's religious beliefs, whether it's the value systems that you have to evaluate that now and say, is this still alignment? Am I struggling right now with this? Even when I think about it, how do I
Mhm.
feel about it? What is the emotions behind that? Do I get mad? Do I get angry? Am I questioning it? We have to ask ourselves those questions. And I really think that society will become better once we all learn that just because we was raised a certain way doesn't say that we still have those same systems now, and just shaking that outdated method of thinking all the way around.
Yeah, 100%. 'Cause it's that intentional thought creation and intentionally,
Absolutely.
living life intentionally. And I think one thing when you talked about like the negativity too around that, because a lot of us may have seen that growing up and think that's what you're going to default to. If you're in a household, people don't know how to communicate, you're probably going to struggle communicating until you do the work. So I think about though that anything is possible, you must first believe like, oh, okay, that's no longer working for me. What would I like to see happen? I think
Mhm.
many of us, oh, there's no way I can figure this out. There's no way I can fix this. And I do think that's the power in coaching. Whoever, people do decide to work, so many thousands of amazing coaches out here that coach in so many different ways. But when I think of coaching, it really does help like the client to see, okay, this is how I'm thinking and this is what I'm believing about me. But then there's also a possibility for me to see it differently and then deciding how they want to be intentionally and not by default.
Yeah. Absolutely. Girl,
Mm.
say it again, say it again. So like give the listeners just a little insight on how you begin your process. If someone comes to you and definitely wants to have you as their coach and things like that, kind of tell us how you get started with that.
Yeah. So first, because I like to invite people into my world, there's so many different people, so many different coaches, and I love how we can coach per personality, right? You can have a coach on all the same
Absolutely.
exact thing and it not be anything alike. And I really love
Yes.
that. So I invite people to my space first. I am on Facebook, Regina Sloan Coaching. Very active there. I'm very active on Instagram, and that's at Your Mindset Nurse. And then I also host free monthly workshops. They're free for everyone. I talk about these kinds of things. I have a topic each month, depending on what it is. And we go for an hour, hour and a half, and I teach on that. They walk away with the plan. They know exactly. I give it all in those workshops. So it's a fun way to kind of see what working with me would look like. If someone is already looking for a life coach or they like what they've heard so far, I do a consult with folks. You can email me at info@reginasloancoaching.com, or you can message me on any of those platforms. I'm also on LinkedIn at Regina Sloan. And we simply set up a consult. They're 60 to 90 minutes. They're free. We go into a deep dive of exactly like what's going on with them. And then I show them, how working with me, what we would do. And if it's aligned, we'll talk about, time, energy, and money investment.
I love that. I love that. And I love that too, because I think it's important, especially as coaches, that we do have those spaces. It's not about us always trying to get a sale. It's not us always trying to get clients. But also I think it helps us too, sis. And I don't know about you, but it definitely helps me to have those spaces and to be able to pour into others and to talk. And this is what my book was actually based off of this. I named it From Havoc to Healing because I actually was in havoc helping people, but now that I'm on that healing journey, hey, it's 10 times better. You know what I'm saying? So to be able to be in that space and to be able to say I am on a healing journey, it is so dope. But then also it's fun. When we walking in purpose, sis, it's not a job to us. You know what I'm saying? And I can clearly tell that you love what you do. And I love that. Like I love how you glow just talking about how you are helping people on your platforms and stuff like that. So if final words, like what would you suggest to somebody who may be kind of going through some of the things that we talked about in today's episode? What would be
Yeah.
some final thoughts?
Yeah. I think that one, to really pay attention to what you have in your ears and what you're watching. Um, there's a concept in coaching like buffering where because we don't like what's happening, can kind of veer off and do other things to keep our minds off of that. And so that's when we go into over scrolling, overeating, over shopping, over whatever. Um, but the first thing that helped me, and it still is that I really do. I'm very intentional about what I'm listening to, what I'm watching, what I'm reading, whatever the case may be, because what you are bringing in, you're filtering out, right? You're filtering in your mind, and that becomes what you can think, what you think is possible for you, what you believe. When you're listening to people, podcasts and episodes like this, I also have a podcast called She Can Achieve, if anybody's interested in that. But when you're listening to this kind of stuff, it's like as you're listening, your brain is picking up. You're at a higher frequency. You're picking up like, oh, and you're hearing things. You're like, damn, it might be possible for me. And then you listen to something again that says that, and like, oh, dang. And then you also see that whoever it is you admire or look up to, or whoever you're listening to, they all have a story. So then it helps your brain to see, oh, this can be me too. Oh, they've been where I've been. There are so
Yes.
many people that have gone through the trenches, and they didn't allow that to hold them back. And so I think first is monitoring, what you are listening to, what you're reading, what you're putting your time and energy into. And then really take a moment. I really try to take a few moments a day, like to really just, what is it that I really want? And are my actions aligned with that? I want to feel better about myself. But what are you doing like day in and day out, right? In the present moment, not about the past, not about tomorrow, but what are you doing currently? I think if people focus on those things and listening to things like this, there's so many world of podcasts, YouTube. I mean, it's an endless amount of positive
Absolutely.
things that we can be listening to. You're going to then elevate your thinking, which then will drive you to go and get the help that you need. If you're struggling on a certain thing, for sure.
Yeah, the cycle is so real, y'all. You have to be ready to create your new cycle because
Yeah.
your cycle is not going to be the cycle that you had 5 years ago, especially when you want to grow. So I love that. Great advice. Great advice. And everything that she listed, y'all, as far as all her links, her podcast details, her social media platforms, all of those links will be in the podcast description notes. So I will definitely make sure that you guys have immediate access to that. Regina, it has been a pleasure, sis. I am so glad that you've come on, drop some empowering real talk, and I definitely know that the listeners are going to get some great value from that. I so appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me and for giving us this platform, for someone to be able to hop on YouTube and listen to something like this free. Like I just love it so much, right? Because not everybody is at a space where they can invest and do the thing, but being
Right.
able to turn something on, I just love that. So thank you.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right, y'all. We out of here. Y'all know where y'all can find me at. Again, if you have not subscribed to the channel, subscribe to the podcast on your audio platforms. Listen, y'all, these conversations are necessary. Okay. And I'm going to continue to do what I got to do to make them available to y'all. All right. So I'm out of here. Stay dope, stay focused, stay empowered, baby.